Hi everybody, and welcome back to Kevin's Upfront Opinion. Sorry about my hair. I've been out on the school run and it is tipping down with rain. But today, what I thought I'd speak about is when couples split up. Okay, and there's kids involved. Why does it end up as a mess? Okay, so that's what I'm going to talk about. Okay, so what I'm going to do is look at a few case studies what I know of, some people I know of, and I'm going to look at my own personal experience. Now, I'm currently married for the second time. Now, what I can say about my first marriage, even though my ex-wife tried to stitch me up a little bit, she did a tiny bit. Okay, our divorce went through, and it was pretty amicable. We had no serious problems. She tried to accuse me of adultery back in the days where there had to be proper grounds where it was like unreasonable behaviour, which was like 3 years separation at the end of the day, or it had to be something like adultery, and the other one where you could get it done quickly. I can't remember what it was. And she tried to stitch me up on adultery. And I remember when I got the paperwork come through, because at that stage I was actually with my current wife, and she accused me. Back on this is quite funny. She accused me of having an affair with the person that obviously I'm married to now, but put down a different name. And the only reason she did it was because she had managed to look at my bank statement, okay, and she had seen I'd made a transaction and I'd sent the amount of money um, to my current wife, okay, but she called her by the wrong name because on the bank transaction when I do a transfer, it just said Cullenmore. That's all it said. So technically, it could have been a man or a woman. Okay, it didn't actually specify, but I sent her. I think I sent her and her sister about £500 so they could go shopping for the day. So because of that, she went and accused me of adultery. I remember when I got the paperwork, I sent the paperwork back and I said, "This is a load of bullshit because my what is now my ex-wife had sent me an email openly admitted that she had had numerous affairs during our marriage. She openly admitted it. And I said, I will provide the emails because she admitted that she had had an affair and knew that I hadn't. Okay. And I said, I will provide the emails that have come from her personal email address. So they threw it out and then eventually we got divorced and we came to an agreement. Okay. And it was nice and simple. Now, when it comes to, so that was pretty amicable. So that's how you would normally expect, you would think in a civilized country, in a Western world, that people would do it. You know, they come to some kind of common ground, come to an agreement, you know, so it doesn't become a shouting battle. But that's not always the case. And I know several cases where people have stitched each other up. They've had to go through the rest of their lives, okay, or currently, uh, basically lying to the kids of what's actually gone on. You know, if I look at my own mother and father personally, okay, now I'm 47 years of age. My mother and father got divorced when I was probably about two or three. Not one of those two people, still to this day, can actually tell the truth of what actually happened. They both give the same story. Okay, and I'm not going to go into because I'm not going to badmouth my mother and father. I am about to badmouth my mother and father, to be honest. Okay, but they both give the same story, but they blame the other person. You know, and I've had to put up with that for the last 40 years. You know, it's the old classic cliche, piggy in the middle. You know, if you take a look at my sister, she'll believe everything my mother says. You know, I'm a realist. You know, some of what my father said, could I believe my mum did it? Absolutely. Knowing what my mother's like. Could I believe what my mother said? Absolutely. I could believe every single word what my mother said. but one of them's got to be lying at the end of the day, and that's the reality of the situation. So, why do people do it? And it's a fundamental, easy answer, and this is the easiest way I can explain it. Okay, so I'm trying to think of the best way to put it. Right, so 2009. No, sorry, would it be 2009? No, it wouldn't be 2009. It'd be 2008. Okay, 2008. I met this girl. Okay, just had serious, two serious epileptic seizures. So this was the summer of 2008. Okay, I'd had serious epileptic seizures. Okay, I got rushed to hospital. Okay, I was living in a share house. Nobody bothered phoning an ambulance. They could see I was unconscious. Like I had to come round until I was semi-conscious, and I had to phone an ambulance for myself. Can you believe that? I had to phone my own bloody ambulance. First and only time I've had to actually do it for myself. Okay. And when the ambulance came and picked me up, took me straight to Southampton General Hospital. Wonderful people at Southampton General. Um, and because I wasn't with it, okay, the hospital phoned up my mother, okay, who was actually living in Southsea at the time. And they phoned her up and told her, we need you to come down to Southampton. Your son's in hospital, okay, so you can pick him up. He can't be released into his own care. And she did that. She came and picked me up, and I ended up having to move out of my accommodation that I was living in, and my mum had to care for me. And my mum ended up caring for me for about 2 years. In total, it took 2 years for me to recover, and I never actually fully recovered. And a lot of people are going to say, why on earth did it take you 2 years to recover from an epileptic seizure? And this is the reason. Okay. When I had that epileptic seizure, I was laid on a bed, and I will come to the relevance in a moment. Okay, I was laid on a bed, and I smashed my skull against a brick wall. When I say brick wall, it's the wall against the bedroom, and I ended up suffering partial amnesia. So some of my oldest friends couldn't even remember. So when I would go onto Facebook, you look at 2008, I had no idea who they were. And there's this one particular girl, I love her to bits. Absolutely adore her. Always did. She's one of my oldest friends through school. Okay, couldn't even remember her. And my sister Tracy, it's a younger sister, only by about 18 months. She'd go on my Facebook with me, trying to tell me who these people were because I couldn't remember any of them. And some of them I'm only starting to remember who they actually are. And that's 17 years on. Some of them I still can't remember who they were. So I ended up moving to Southsea, okay, which was an area I didn't know. I've been to Portsmouth once in my life, which was to go shopping with my brother. To is it Gunwharf? I think it's Gunwharf. Yeah. Okay, so we went shopping to Gunwharf, and I remember that occasion, and that was the only time that I'd ever been to Portsmouth. I didn't know Portsmouth, so when I moved there, didn't know anybody, and I'll openly admit to doing this. And I know people slag off online dating, okay, and I appreciate a lot of people don't like it. So I went on to the Facebook version of it, okay, and I started just talking to random people, and I started talking to this girl, and the girl was Sophie Whittier, and she lived in Leon Solent. Okay, we met up and everything, and we started going out. Okay, and then she fell pregnant. Um, and eventually, before the baby was born and everything, I made a stupid comment. I did something that was really stupid. Never harmed her. Never harmed the child. Never harmed anybody. It was just a stupid comment. Um, which is something I've always learnt to regret for saying. Now, the relevance is to this is because of what I said. Okay, she's always stopped me from seeing my daughter. She's got no ground. She's got no legal ground. She's never had any legal grounds to stop me. Okay, because as she only too well knows, okay, you have no legal right in the UK to stop a parent from seeing their child. Okay. There's no legal justification, morally or legally, unless a specific thing. So, say for instance, you're a paedophile or something, or you're a murderer. The courts may put something in to say, no, we're not having this. Or you're a druggie or something along them lines. Then, yeah, they may put something in place. For me, there's no justification whatsoever. And she's gone out of her way for over 16 years. Because my daughter's over 16 now. She was 16 back in August. And she still refuses to allow me to communicate with her. Okay. And if you consider, okay, I own two businesses. I work within charities. And one of the charities also is within a hospital as well. Okay. So it's my second stint back at the charity as it happens, because I've just been invited to go back, a couple of weeks ago. Um, and a lot of people are going to say, yeah, but what's the relevance to this? And this is the relevance. And this is why women are spiteful. It's not always the case it's women, can sometimes be men. Now, what Sophie doesn't know, and what my daughter will definitely not know, unless she watches this video or one of her friends watches this video or a member of her family tells her. Okay. Now, my grandfather, which would be her great grandfather, he died back in 2014. Okay. One of the hardest times in my life. Probably one of two times I've ever cried in my adult life. Okay. First time I ever cried was the morning my daughter was born. Okay. When I found out, I blew it. And the only person that knew has ever known that is my mother. But I cried. Part of it, it's because I never got told, and I had to find out on Facebook, but because I realised I'd become a father, and nobody had the decency also to tell me. The only other time I've ever cried, well, one other on top of this, when I had a nervous breakdown last year, okay, was the morning I got a phone call from my mother telling me my grandfather had died. And you're probably all still thinking, what's the relevance? Okay, so this is the relevance. Okay, so my grandfather died, April, May. I think it was in the June. I've got a feeling it was in the June he died. Okay, I may be mistaken because my memory ain't that great. Okay, and the previous year, just after I got married, which would have been at the end of October, when I came back off my honeymoon with my wife, I took my wife at the time to see my grandfather. Because my grandfather was the most important person in my life. And because my grandfather was really ill, and we knew he never had much time, you could just tell by the look of him, the way that he communicated with me, because he still knew who I was. And he said to me, and I still remember this to this day, he said, Kevin, if you ever find your daughter, I want you to give her some money. I said, okay. And he said to me, I'm going to send you some money over, and this is going to be our inheritance. Okay. Now, what people got to understand, I've not even received any inheritance from my grandfather's estate. Okay, because my nan's still alive. None of my family even know this money got sent to me. Okay? My mother doesn't know. My uncle doesn't know. My other cousins don't know. Nobody knows. And my grandfather sent this money. It's not a massive amount of money. Okay, so it actually isn't. Okay, and he put it into. He sent it over to me. He sent it into my bank account. Okay. Now the only person that actually knows about this amount of money is my wife. She's the only person know, as in my current wife, and obviously my ex-wife knew about it as well. So my grandfather sent me this amount of money, and I'm not about to disclose how much it is. Okay. So if you take, for instance, for the last, so that was 2014, so we're in 2026. So for the last 12 years, my daughter's been entitled to this money. Okay. So even though it's not a life changing amount of money, okay, she could go and do a driving lessons. I know she's only 16. Okay. She could go on holiday. Money she's entitled to. It's not my money. Okay. It's not my money. Her money. But the thing is, why doesn't she have it? And there's one reason. And there's only one reason, because of her mother. And this is the fundamental problem of why everything always goes, well, not always, because that's not entirely true, but why things go wrong an awful lot of time when couples separate, whether they were married or whether they weren't married. And that's because one person wants narrative and one person wants control. Okay. Now I know other people where this is the case. Okay, but I'm not going to go into theirs because it's not for me to talk about what's going on in their relationship or their former relationship and the breakdown. Okay. Um, but this is a classic example that she's wanting to carry the narrative. She wants control, and she does have control. Okay. She still has control, even though my daughter's classified as an adult. Okay. I can guarantee you she does not know who I am. One of these days, okay, she'll wise up. I know that because I've been through that. You know, I know what my mother did. My mother knows what she did to me and my sister. Okay. You know, I don't want to go slagging my mother off. Okay. Because, for one, she has her own health problems at the end of the day. But there are so many people that do this type of thing. Okay. And I know cases of pending potential court cases of where this is happening. So the reality of it is, why? Why would you do it? Does it make you feel good? You know, because the reality is that anybody that does it, okay, and everybody likes to think they're a good parent. I never say I'm a good parent. You know, if my, let's say for instance, my daughter phoned me up today and she said, Kevin, could we go and meet with my mum up in Fareham today? Okay, and I'd obviously agree, no matter what I've got planned today. Okay, and she said, "Are you a good parent?" I'd say no. That's not because I'm a bad parent, you know, because obviously I've got in total six other. I always say six other children, you know, five other children, but are actually biologically mine, and one's my stepdaughter. And I know people are going to have a go at me for saying that. Don't really care. You know, even my stepdaughter says I'm not her father at the end of the day. So that's why I can get away with saying it. You know. But I would say no, I'm not a good father. But if you want to know if I truly am, you've got two options. One, you go and ask my kids. Okay, your brothers and sisters, what they personally think. Or you go and ask my wife. Or you go and ask her family. Because otherwise, I'm just giving you a biased opinion on what I personally think. doesn't make it true. And this is the fundamental people think about people that do this. They're not good parents. They're lousy parents. Because the only people that they're actually thinking about is themselves. They don't think about the children. Fundamentally, they do not think about the children. They think about themselves. And that's the only people. And anybody that's done this, if you don't like me saying that, have the balls to message me and tell me why you think I'm wrong. Because I know you won't. Fundamentally, no, you ain't got the guts to do it. Because I've pulled people up on it, and what they do is run away and start crying. Okay, fully grown adults because they can't face up to what they've actually done themselves. I know if I went and spoke to my ex-girlfriend, she won't speak to me because she knows point blank. If I got pulled on, say for instance, like you had the Jeremy Cole show back in the day, I would rip her to shreds. And even though the Jeremy Cole show did actually try to get her on, there was no way she was ever going to do it because she knows she would have been ripped to shreds live on TV. Would have been live, been pre-recorded at the end of the day. But you know what I mean at the end of the day. So why do it? Because at the end of the day, these kids are eventually going to find out. So let me know what you actually think. Why do parents actually do these things when everything could quite easily, like in my first marriage, be quite simple and amicable? Because there's no reason at the end of the day to make things difficult, to make things horrible. Because the only person that suffers, and this is reality, if you look at me and my sister have been in counselling most of our lives. We've been on tablets to do with depression. I've suffered with depression for over 30 years. Never really faced up to it. It's only in recent years that I've really faced up to it. My wife will still tell you, if I put her on camera right now, she'll still tell you that I still need to go into counselling. I refuse to go into counselling. Okay, but she'll still tell you that I still need counselling to this day. You know. So my argument is, why do people do this? Because nobody wins in the end. And the one person that I will guarantee you that will always lose, no matter how much you try and protect them, is the children. So I would always say, think carefully before you act. But for now, thanks for watching, and I'll speak to you all again a bit later.